Everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Take Time Out with Tre Mosley. I am your guide on this VO journey. But we don't always talk VO, even though the last few episodes we have. We'll talk about that later. Anywho, the young man before me, or on the right side of me, or wherever you're watching podcasts, if you're listening in your car, my guest. He hails from Dayton, Ohio, and no, he did not go to the school, so don't ask. But he took his talents and did like most of us, and he moved west. Go westward, they say. But before we get into who uh Dan Nachtrab is, let's listen to what he does.
The waters of the Outer Banks are unforgiving and full of riches for the fishermen who dare.
Tonight, we celebrate the 4th of July like only WWE can.
Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, Saturday at 10 a.m. on Discovery Family.
Life Below Zero. New episode Tuesday, November 10th at 8 on National Geographic. The joy of giving and receiving. Yes! With the best thing of all.
Get ready.
Being with the ones you love.
Come on, guys! Hey, guys!
Come home for the holidays. To Disney Plus. It's not just drugs that Customs and Border Protection is on the lookout for. The cartels need constant supplies of materials to allow them to make and distribute their narcotics. Whale watching has become a local tourist attraction here. But some whales turn the tables and go people watching. Green Book, rated PG-13. Foe, rated R. Ezra, rated R. Only in theaters May 31st. Free Solo. Experience it at IMAX. Rated PG-13. The Long Game. Rated PG. Only in theaters April 12th. This is our call to action. To create teams, products, and stories that inspire millions. This is Columbia.
I don't know if you're excited like I'm excited, but I'm pretty excited.
Did your people or
Dan,
my people put that together?
I don't know because, and I'm gonna tell a story. So Dan Nachtrab, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he's here. He is here. He sent over a few iterations, and I was teasing him like, dude, it's okay. But then, looking at the final product, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. When you have such a vast resume of things, you have to make sure that you capture each essence into each job. I'm just messing with him because I know Dan is a stickler like that. But yeah, man, welcome to the show, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Uh, thanks for taking some time out. I know you're way out there. I say way because if you see the map of the U.S. and like if you keep going further to the left, not California, but go up, and then there's this little small square called Oregon. That's where he
Oregon.
is. See,
That's where I am.
that's where. So before we talk about the what I call the after, which is what you're doing now, and the many successes that you have in our lovely industry, let's rewind the clock and the
Okay.
miles, and we're gonna go all the way back to the Midwest, Dayton, Ohio.
Uh,
Who was Dan then? And how did
it,
he evolve into one of our great storytellers? Were you an active kid in theater, drama, and stuff like that, or
I,
how did-
I grew up in Cincinnati
okay,
and went to high school there. And my brother got into the theater program and stuff. And when I was a freshman, he insisted that I audition for the high school musical, and that set everything in motion. So me riding a unicycle for the musical Barnum was how it all started. And then, I was already in the band program, and then I got into choir, and then, that just continued through high school. I was interested in both sides of the stage, so behind the stage work, doing stage manager, audio production,
Okay.
things like that, and then it took off. It all came to a head, my senior year in high school. I was doing, an announcement, talking about a high school band that was playing that weekend, "Come on out to some church and you could do it," but I was doing it in the style of a pukey DJ, and
Come on
the
out
se
to the
exactly,
yeah.
"Live in concert, it's a all new," that kind of, and, the teacher, or no, there's a secretary right behind me, and she goes, "You sound just like Shadow Stevens. You should be on the radio."
Wow.
And so Shadow Stevens, the, guy who was doing America's Top 40 at the time,
Right.
um, and, uh, and so I put that in my back pocket, went to a little local, broadcasting school, and, got into radio. So I was when Dayton hit, I was a 20-year-old snot-nosed punk, thought he knew everything, and, it kinda took off from there. So
That's interesting because, and for those of you, viewers who don't know, Shadow Stevens, in radio is legendary. I don't like
yeah.
to throw that word around, but he is. He was also the announcer in the mid '80s for the new Hollywood Squares, the one that John Davison, 'cause that's how he would announce his
Mhm.
name. John Davison would host. So, get on your YouTubes and your Googles and look him up. Uh, that's pretty lofty company for the secretary to hear that in you at 16, 17 years old.
She was probably just trying to be nice, and it altered the course of my life.
I mean, there's a timeline where you could have been Dan Nachtrab, world-class beer pourer and truck driver, but, that's an inside joke. But, hearing that and she heard something in you, you never know where the inspiration is going to come from.
No, you don't.
And
No.
that's cool that, she heard something in you, was like, "Hey, you got something, you should go pursue it." Um, so you're at school, uh, in Dayton, and you're into broadcasting. What was it about, uh, broadcasting and in particular radio? Because a lot of you VO folks that I talk to are just my friends in general. I would say a good third of you come from radio. What is it or was it, and it still may, hold you in that regard, but what is it about radio versus television broadcasting that uh, it attracts so many people to it?
I honestly, I think it's innocence. Radio people think the switch to voiceover is gonna be super easy because they
Mhm.
both talk into microphones, and I can attest to it. My ego drove me more than anything in the beginning. I had no sense of read, what a good read was, but
Right.
I could, but I had confidence, probably too much, and and confidence can get you very far, but it takes you to a certain point, and then after that, having talent is where, to get to the national levels and stuff like that, they require a bit more, and so, when I got into voiceovers, I don't know, 1995-ish was my first paid jobs outside of the radio station,
Wow.
and, I was just doing car dealers and stuff like that, and it was all for money. It was extra cash, and it was lovely, but I never really set my sights on being a voiceover person. If anything, I wanted to be a voice imaging guy,
Mm,
and I come to find out that I sucked at it. So I
that
just
is hard to believe.
I, I could tell you a story. I was in a small little workshop with 2 friends of mine, Joe Zamansky and Ben Wilson, who are both extraordinary talent,
I know Joe Szymanski. I don't know him
and,
personally, but I know who he is.
yeah, and, so we were, like, we did a private coaching session with each other, and I did a CHR read in front of them, and all of a sudden there's this dead silence and then just this burst of laughter. And they said, that was a great read, Dad, for 1993. And
Wow.
and I was like, maybe this isn't my shtick. So, but anyway, yeah, that was around 2006, 2007, somewhere
Oh,
in there.
wow, they
So,
dated you. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
That
but but and so for extra cash, I got into that. I found an agent who I thought I was just going to do voiceover stuff for, and ends up there wasn't that big of a market for me, but they saw something in me for on-camera work and some part-time modeling and stuff like that. But it was I
excuse me?
when I say this, I really quickly have to humble and dissuade any kind of perception. It was for meat processing equipment. And I had to do one job where I had this giant American eagle on my chest, and I was holding a 2-foot fishing lure. It was yeah.
Was the
It
eagle real?
No, it was just, one of those
Okay.
painted American
Okay, gotcha.
screaming eagle kinda shirts and stuff, and it wasn't exactly my scene for fashion, but anyway, and, but I did on camera and stuff, and I got a couple of nice spokesperson jobs.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
and with that, my wife kind of saw the future and knew that if we were to invest in this, we could probably have a go at it.
Mm,
And right around 2004, 2005, I built my first home studio, and that was right when the first pay to plays were coming online.
yeah.
And so here I was in Dayton, Ohio. There's no voiceover market except for local stuff, car dealers, which is what I'm already doing.
Mhm.
And that expanded my market when that came on. So I was raised on the P2Ps, um, and did that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, something like that. Um, and then made the transition in 2010 to LA and New York when I had the proper coaching, all that.
Now at the time, when you were venturing out, were you doing you said when you started doing the P2Ps in the early 2000s, was that was your full-time gig at that
Yeah.
point? Had you become full-time VO? Okay.
Yeah. Radio and I had my final disagreement in 2005, July 15th, and I walked out that door with my little box and never really looked back. I begged my
Sick.
wife, "Give me 3 weeks to get this voiceover thing going." And she gave it to me, and that 3 weeks turned into 2 years, and that
Wow.
inside of that 2 years, she was able to quit her job. Um,
Nice.
I had a brand new baby, 6 months old,
Ah.
um, and so it was sink or swim, and I decided to paddle my ass off and get going. So yeah, and, I took what I learned in radio as far as I could,
Yeah.
to about 2006 for about a year, and then I realized I'd hit a wall and, did my first workshop in Fort Myers, Florida with Brian Lee and, Randy Thomas.
Brandy, yeah.
Yeah,
Be your
and
master.
they set me on a course. Those 2
Mm,
set me on a course. They were my first mentors, and I owe them a great deal, for setting me on the right path.
yeah.
They put me in touch with some pretty good people, um, and then the network kind of built from there, and, the direction was already in movement at that point. So, but that took about, I don't know, 3 years before I got LA.
Yeah.
That came into play, but it was a lot to learn.
Now,
Mhm.
did you actually when you and your wife, and the little one now, did you actually make the decision to move to LA or just out west in general?
Um, it's an extremely long story, but
We
I
got
will make this as fast as I can.
you're on the clock.
Uh, uh, I accepted a job in San Jose, California in 2000.
Mhm.
On the way, we swung through some towns we thought would be neat to live in. One of those was Portland, Oregon, and we stopped.
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't make it to San Jose. We lived in a hotel for a month. We got jobs, but our house back in Dayton refused to sell, so
Uh,
we had to move back. But we loved it in Portland. So we kept that in mind. We wanna go back and finish that journey the right way.
yeah.
And so in 2010, at the height of the recession from the big crash and everything, we
Mm,
thought this might be a good time to try and sell our house. And we did, and we got our asking price, and we moved. So we took our 2 kids at that point across the country, 2,440 miles,
oh,
and
I've
here we
I've
were,
done it.
and we've been here ever since.
Wow.
So the kids really don't even remember Ohio. So, they
That's
remember flashes, but
that's
so they're
great.
Oregonians, no
Yeah.
doubt,
Yeah, they
but,
are not born and raised, but raised enough to know, uh,
yeah,
this is where we planted our flag. That is interesting. And being in this business, um, for as long as I have and as long as you have, you never know where it's going to take you. I started in 2009, still working my dreadful corporate job. And even when I got laid off, it was just something about wanting to do this that kept me, I guess it fueled me to keep going to see what I could really become of myself.
mhm.
And I had my days where I'm like, yeah, this ain't working. Uh,
I still get those.
impossible. Um, well, since you brought that up, how do or did when you have those days where and I was talking about this and I like to talk about this subject often with everyone that I interview that's in our business because being a voice actor means a lot of rejection,
Yeah.
b how do you face the adversity that comes with that rejection, and then c is usually the result of the first two is how you recover from that.
Mhm.
Because and I just had an interview a couple of days ago, you will get to a point where you wake up, oh, I got 6 bookings today. Yay. Tuesday I got 4. Wednesday there's 3. And fast forward like 6 months later and it's like I only have work on Monday today. It's not popping. Honey, are we all right for the
Are
next
we alright?
week?
Yeah.
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 So Um, talk about that, especially in the earlier years, or any obstacles that you faced in this business, trying to, set sail that you dealt with and were able to overcome.
I It's funny is that I still have the same worries that I had when I started. The next gig is the most important,
Amen.
and, it's you have to learn the hustle at the beginning. There is going to be ups and downs, and it's how you manage your time during the downs that matter.
Hmm.
So are you networking? Are you marketing? Are you taking lessons? Are you trying to better yourself? Anyway, in any way, shape, or form. And once you see, I mean, I've had some pretty great, um, friends along the way who have been on the same journey at the same time,
Hmm.
and we, talk each other through those moments of just like, just keep your head down and keep moving because it's gonna come back, and it's gonna come back in force. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But if you let the darkness in, it comes out in your reads, and that's where a dangerous spiral can happen. And I can attest that that's happened a couple of times for me. I'm just like where you look back 6 months ago and you go, "What the heck was I thinking?" Well, you were too much in your head. That's what you were thinking. So you have to break that cycle somehow, some way. But the rejection to me, um, that has never bothered me because it's one of the most beautiful parts of this business is that the rejection is simply silence. You never hear it. You never get rejected, you're just not chosen.
Hmm.
And so you don't hear the inner discussions and of the people who are casting of this guy sucks or this guy's good or whatever. And for most part, I can't even imagine those discussions actually sounding like that. They're just like, not them, not them, not them, that one. And that's got to be it, you know? Um, Randy Thomas shared something with me, I think at that very first workshop. She just said, um, uh, imagine a big bowl of fruit sitting on the table,
Mhm.
and the producer's going to walk up to that bowl of fruit and pick out a mango or a banana or whatever. And she goes, the object is to be one of the fruit in the bowl. Eventually, it's going to be your turn, but
Mhm.
it's just matter of taste at that moment. I think this ingredient is going to work best for my project. Um, and that stuck with me. And so I'm like, just be good enough to be in the bowl, and eventually you'll get your turn at bat. So
That is a great analogy, and also, um, that's it's crazy because in my 15 years of doing this, what you just said about rejection being the beautiful thing because rejection is silence, I never thought of it that way. You know, there's the adage that no news is good news, but you put an entirely different spin on it. And now that I sit and think about it, you know, when you do audition for something and then you don't hear anything back, um, in some cases, because and you and I both know sometimes you can audition for something and hear back same day,
yeah,
next day, or
yeah.
a week down the road. In some cases, I had one, it was 6 months. I'm like, "Oh, y'all still doing that?" Like, "Yeah, it took us a minute, but, you know, you're the guy." And I'm not mad, I'm just like, "I
No,
forgot all about it." "Well, thank you, and when do
I
we
don't
start?"
remember auditioning for you at all,
At all.
but
Like
thank you.
"We did what?" Or the one that gets me, "Yeah, we just lifted your audition, and you're now just telling me this?"
Yeah,
Okay. A lift, by the way, is when, if you're booked for a job and instead of scheduling a session, they just take the audition and put it into the project.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and that's always a good feeling when you get a
Oh,
lift.
it's wonderful. They're just gonna mail you a check. Good
Yeah.
job,
It's like,
you
"Hey, they
know?
lifted your spot." "Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep it coming."
Well, you know you're doing something right at that point.
Exactly.
The silence thing is something that I contemplated a lot,
Mm,
as I was growing up, and I realized that silence was the greatest teacher in all of being in the creative world, is that the market responds when it likes something, and that means you're going to hear something.
mhm,
But silence means there is no response. So in the short term, silence just means, "Oh, I didn't get that job." But in the long term, if it's a continued silence, that's the market telling you something. Something is
mm,
wrong with what you're presenting, and so you have to go find out what that is. And that's when, and I learned this in 2010 when I first got on with my first LA agent. I did 190 basically commercial auditions, and I heard nothing, from any of that. And now I was coming from the regional local markets, and I
yeah,
literally was at a 20% audition rate.
that's pretty good.
So 1 in 5 auditions I was getting.
Yeah.
But on the national level, that was new to me, and then that's when the light bulbs turned off. Something is amiss here, what's going on? And so that's when I did the reevaluation of what I was doing. I had studied a lot of promo and trailer with Maurice Tobias for 3 years, but I had never studied commercial.
Ah.
Aha, so
Mm,
let's go learn commercials. So I found a talent or a talent coach that got me into my beginning stages of commercial reads, and then I met Dave Walsh, and Dave took me the rest of the way. Um, as far as uh, promo and trailer went and stuff like that, in narration as well, documentary narration. I never really got to study commercial because it took off in 2012. So I don't know. It's a weird story, but it's true that those two. Um, it was Nancy Wolfson and Dave. they go, "You have too much radio in your voice, so we're gonna work on that."
Oh boy.
So it wasn't that I was refocusing on commercial, it was just that I had too much radio in me still. And Dave kept saying, "Y your reads are perfect, you just don't sound human." And so
Wow.
that's when the reality of being yourself and your own point of view comes into play. And then when that big breakthrough finally happened, uh, the career just shot off. It just took off from that place. So,
So talk about, and I hear this term often for one who was not in radio, but I hear people when they talk about the transition that you have that radio sound. What is the difference between broadcasting for radio and doing voiceover? Because it's such a chicken or the egg type thing, because a lot of you radio folks do well in VO, but then they say you have to get rid of the radio sound. So explain to those who may not know, hand raised, what is the radio sound, and why is it so difficult to remove?
okay. A lot of people call it the announcer read.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a disconnect in the read, and there's basically a shield that is put up from true interaction and intimacy. Okay.
Mhm.
So radio people on most music stations really just read off of liner cards. Everything is kind of typed out in front of you, and you say your call letters, and then you say that was this song, and coming up we have this song, and then you read your little announcement that the station wants you to talk about, an upcoming contest or concert or an event or whatever,
Mhm.
blah blah blah. And then we're also trained to smile. We put on this fake sheen that just says, "Hi, we're happy. We're good people to hang out with, and we're your best friend." And so that training becomes innate, and it becomes a part of you
Mm.
when you're stuck in front of this microphone. There really is no true connection going on unless you're in a more talk format. Okay. So if you're doing morning show radio or if you're doing talk shows, things like that, your natural tones are going to come out. Your spontaneity is going to come out. Your point of view is going to come out. And in those situations, they actually have an easier transition because they're used to improv and things like that when they're going through those. But for the liner jocks, it's a more difficult thing. And they take those skills and they transfer it over into the commercials.
Mhm.
Okay. So they apply those reads to the commercial reads, and there's not an intimacy involved, an actual point of view that's going on. There's a shield. And I have found, and this was myself included, that the announcer read is actually a self-defense mechanism from your inner critic,
Hmm.
because you are never really allowed to be yourself on the radio in most situations. So having an it's a fear that you're dealing with, and you're hearing all these little judges in the back of your head, but you know that this is safe. If I were to do this liner voice guy, that's
Mhm.
safe.
Yeah.
I can get through that. But if I become intimate and open and vulnerable on a microphone with my actual thoughts, my actual emotions and stuff like that, somebody's going to make fun of me.
Mm.
And it's usually yourself
Well.
most of the time. And so it's learning how to break apart from that mentality. And that's becoming an actor, really. When you can live in the moment
Mhm.
and say someone else's words as if they are your own, you're an actor, plain and simple. So,
I like that. Like, ain't he cool? He just, he's gonna write a VO like meditation book or something. We need it. We need it. Don't choke on your water, but we need it.
I'll try
All
not
right.
to.
So now it's 2010, and something about the Pacific Northwest is inviting to you, and you say, California, we're going to stay up here where the weather is crisp and the fish are jumping, and summertime is no higher than 83 degrees. uh, and all that good stuff. At least that's what Kim told me, and
Yeah.
I'll take her word for it. Hi, Kim, if you're watching this, you know who you are. Hey, Ulf, as well.
Kim
Um,
Fuller.
that is correct. Um, talk about and see again. This is all the before, folks. So most people you hear were either uh, New York, L.A., Chicago, and you have some folks like myself who are kind of in between. Um, Dan went way left. Uh, what is it about Portland that called you home?
Um, when we decided we needed to move, I was in Dayton, the ISDN was chirping, and they go, "What's this area code? We don't recognize it." And then I would say, "Yeah, I'm in Dayton, Ohio," and then there would be this silence, and you can hear the people, the producers, to "Dayton?
Like, where is this
Did
guy?
you hire the right guy? This is what?" And I mean, the session would go out fine, and it was, but you could always hear that.
Yeah.
We knew and this is, I don't know, it was growing, and perception is a big part of it, you know. But so we thought New York and LA, it was just too expensive for us. We were coming out of Dayton, Ohio, and so we said, let's just do Portland. Portland has a killer advertising scene here, so we thought we'd swing here and we'll take it from there. My coach at the time, Maurice Tobias, told me, move where it makes you happy,
Mm,
and it will show up in your work. And my first year, business increased 75%.
wow.
Yeah, it took off. So, I love living here. I
I
love the
bet.
mountains, I love the oceans, I love the fresh everything, I love the rain, I love the fog, I love the craft beer, I love the wine, I love the coffee, everything about it.
Oh,
So,
we're gonna get into the beer. We are definitely going to get into the beer. Yes, indeed. Uh, so you made the move. Things, like you said, a 75% jump. That I'd never heard of a jump like
yeah.
that. I mean, moving here from Florida to Vegas, it was significant, maybe 35, 40%, but 75. You were pretty much cornering the market. What and I know you said that they have a like their advertising uh in that area is big. So I wanted to go back a bit and talk about how you yourself, other than your agents and reps, how do you market and what do you feel are some of the tactics that work for you that brings in new business? If you want to share, because some people keep that close to the vest and like, well, I'm not telling the whole world how I get business, but if you don't mind.
A friend of mine once told me a quote from Steve Martin, and it simply was, "Become so good they can't ignore you."
Mm,
And so my marketing simply was have a decent website and be really good. That was it. Um, I had great friends who introduced me to agents because they saw my work in workshops, they saw my growth, they saw the potential of uh, what I really envisioned happening. And it came through. So maintaining is different. That's a different beast altogether. Um, you have to stay in contact with your people that you work with and keep those relationships going. If you don't, they kind of forget about you after a while because they've moved on to their next project.
mhm.
So just staying in contact with them lightly is enough. Even social media, I know a few guys that just exchange memes in the background, and that's how they do it, you know? And, they just, "I'm still thinking of you. This is funny." And that's how
Hey,
they
how's
do
it
it.
going?
Yeah, that's their entire marketing
Oh, I
thing.
have your attention. Check this out.
So but, yeah, um, but that was it. That was the main driving force. Dave Walsh once asked me, he goes, "What's your ultimate goal?" And I kind of shocked him when I said, when I come to the table of the greats, they pull a chair out for me.
Wow.
And that was it. He goes, "It's not to get $1,000,000. It's not." And I said, "No, no." I said, that's a side benefit that happens. When you get good enough that people just come to you, yeah, the money will be there. But,
True.
yeah.
I had a similar moment. Um, Promax, the summer that we were all here. Wait, you were here too? Yeah. Oh, of course you were here because I got schooled. We're gonna get to that.
What did
Uh,
I do now?
yeah, we're gonna get to that. So anyway, I'm here at Promax. It was in Vegas that year, and there was a dinner that some folks were going to, and you had Josh Goodman, you had Kay Bess, you had Paula Tiso.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like some of the
You're
best,
there's some of the best in the world right there in that
right?
handful. Yeah.
But the spearhead of the whole thing was Maurice Tobias. Oh, and oh my goodness, she's about this tall. She's so short. I just want to hug her every time I see her. Carrie Tombazian
Yes.
was there. So, and I'm just kind of like, okay, and there's a steakhouse in Circus called the Steakhouse. And people just they kept saying, "Hey, are you coming with us to the steakhouse?" I'm like, "Yeah, just tell them the name of it." And like, "We can catch a ride with us." I'm like, "Where are we going?" "To the steakhouse." And I'm thinking, "Are we really going?" Now I'm thinking, okay, my survival instincts. I'm like, well, they're not just gonna take the only black person in the car. And I'm like, what is going on? Why are they being so vague about the steakhouse? I do live here, so I'll find it. But no, it's called the steakhouse. That's not the story. So we're there, and I'm just kind of sitting around, and it took a minute for me to warm up to everybody else because Josh I had known just via social media.
Mhm.
Um, Carrie I had
Monster talent.
known. Oh yeah.
Yeah. God.
Most of the folks in that room I just knew through social media. So now to be amongst them, um, I was just like, yeah, all right, I'm here.
Yeah.
Hey. And if I'm not mistaken, it was either Maurice or Cave. Either of you watching this and remember. But I was just kind of sitting there. I was apprehensive because here I am being around uh, these folks who I have seen and heard for years doing what they do. And now I'm sitting here. And Maurice was like, and she's just salt of the earth, sweet lady. She's like, and I think she asked, was I okay? And I'm like, "Yeah, just, taking it all in, being around all you guys." And she looked at me, and she was like, "Well, you know, you belong here." And being in the business as long as you and I have been in, we don't really get this is not an accolades type of business.
No.
Yeah, from your friends, "Oh, that was a kick-ass spot you did," and yeah,
No.
it's like, "Hey, they loved you, they want you to come back." But every now and then when you have folks who you don't know are watching and listening to
Mhm.
kinda tell you like, "Nah, you got something." I was like, "Huh." It touched me in a way that I was not expecting, especially coming from her, uh, and the careers that she has helped launch. To have that, um, not only acceptance, from her, but kinda just her way of saying like, "Look, you know, you can hold a candle or to anybody in here. Like you're here for a reason." And I was just like, maybe I am. How about that? So nah, I get it, man. We have a job that can be in some cases just very thankless. We
Yeah.
do the session and unless it's something recurring, we get fired. It's like, all right, great session.
And
We'll be in.
you'll never know you got fired. They just don't call. It's the silence.
It's the
It's come
silence.
back.
It is the silence. So every now and then when you get someone that, no pun intended, takes time out to let you
Yeah.
know that you're doing good work, is always a good feeling.
Yeah.
Um, so the two, well, not so little ones now, are they trying to follow in Papa's footsteps, or they got their own thing?
The daughter's off being a fine artist. She's 19, and then the son is getting into voiceover, but he's more on the animation side.
Ah.
He wants to be the next D. Bradley Baker.
Oh, that sounds.
He's
Oh, boy.
nuts. And he's already landed a couple of jobs through Atlas, and,
Nice.
so at 16, so,
Wow.
um, yeah, and, so he's kinda on his way already. He just borrows the studio for a little bit, and he's on his own. So, but, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Um,
Good for
it's
him.
funny, that little moment you were talking about, here's my moment, 'cause it's Pro Max, and Pro Max is for those who don't know, Pro Max was
Right.
they ended, because of COVID, basically, but it's a conference where all the promo people meet. So all the people who produce television promos come together and they have a big conference and an award show. And for us, the voiceover talent, it's a chance to go out and meet the producers that we work with all the time, and then to hang around with each other a lot. It's more of our week where we get to share stories and stuff and laugh and be with each other because we live very solitary lives.
Indeed.
Um, this will be the most human interaction I have for days. Uh, so, um, and so here it was, we're at the bar, the conference just let out, everybody's down at the bar, and there's all this great circle of people that I really admire all around me. And the next thing you know, I'm in this weird three-way hug with Joe Cipriano and Rod
Oh,
Houston.
wow.
No. And I'm like, and I'm in the middle. And it took me a while to let that sink in that actually happened. And Rod is just the coolest dude on the face
Oh,
of the earth,
you better believe it.
and Joe is everybody's best friend,
Yeah.
you know? And it just that sat with me. It took me a while. I rode on that cloud for a year,
Oh, you
you
better
know?
believe it.
So, but yeah, that was fun. That was my moment.
That's a pretty good moment. And Rod, if you're watching, see, people are loving. So I've been trying to get Rod. I'm gonna put him on the spot. I hope he don't like get on the show and then cuss me out. But when you have time, sir, see,
You
it's painless.
Here's my
Just come,
story.
just
We're
come
gonna
hang
we're
out.
gonna tie Rod in, and we're gonna tie one of your former guests in here. At this very same conference, just moments earlier, what I don't know, it was right around that same moment, I met Enrique Josephs for the first time,
Oh, that's
okay?
my little bruh.
And,
Yeah.
and somehow Rod came up. I'd just seen Rod over at DG Entertainment doing a job, and he promised me we were gonna talk and everything, and I was looking forward to him. Have you seen him? Anybody seen him? And, because Rod and I would see each other in the hallways at DG Entertainment, and we would nod, we'd say hi real brief, and we're like, "Oh, man, let's sit down, we'll have a drink sometime, we'll talk," and all this stuff, but it never occurred.
Right.
This is over 5 years. 5 times this pattern happened, and it just didn't happen. Rod promised he was showing up that afternoon. Sure enough, he did. He meets Enrique. They both realize they're both from Philly, and Enrique steals the show. I'm like, "Ah! Ah!" I'm like, "No, this is supposed to be my ah."
It's like this movie I saw called Not Another Teen Movie, and this guy kept waiting for the moment to clap, and it never happened. And then when it finally happened, someone clapped before him. He's like, "That's supposed to be my moment." He took your moment. Enrique took. I'm gonna. I'm gonna talk to him today. Like, so, uh, out here stealing people's moments, are you?
No, no, it
Nah,
was just I gave him
that's
a
my
little I was like, "What are you doing? You only know him for 30 seconds, you get a 15-minute conversation." So
yeah, that's my dude, man. Both of them, good brothers. Very talented people. Um, we love y'all, man. We just playing. We just playing.
Oh,
Uh,
they're great. Inspirations, both of them.
I want to go now that the career is doing well. Um, one of my favorite genres, and I would assume that it's also one of your favorites. Promo is great. Um, Promo has paid many a bill. It helped us move from one state through 13 to get here. I love promo, but talking to a good friend of ours who raves about you, Mr. Tom Pinto.
Oh,
Um, what is about narration and getting the opportunity to tell a story? In your words, I love narration because along I think one of the greatest inventions uh prior to the microphone was the moving image pictures, and
mhm,
then to select a voice to now tell the story of the moving pictures or to go along with the story of the moving pictures. I remember a guy was saying that they would sit around and listen to the radio and before TV, and for millions of homes that was their source of entertainment, and now
mhm.
to have that same story being told, it's still theater of the mind, it's just it's visual now. As a narrator, talk about how, what are your processes or steps when you get the copy, and sometimes some people read the picture, some don't, but what is your process, and what do you feel makes a great storyteller, or if you want to go a step further, what makes you a great storyteller?
I'll let other people answer that question, but I'll tell you I'll give you some insight on my process.
Sure.
I've been a storyteller since I was born, to the point that it annoyed people at parties. Um,
You were
my
that good.
friends I had some really rambunctious friends in my late teens, early 20s who got into trouble a lot and, in fun ways,
Hmm.
and I would be the guy who rehashed those stories and made them legends. Be and I would add to the stories. But
Embellishment,
but
you know,
yeah.
embellishment makes for my wife says that you didn't have to add that in. I'm like, but sometimes
But it
embellishment
is
makes for a
sometimes it
good
adds a little.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you get me. Okay, continue.
Yeah, and so, to me, narration is simply a continuation of that. Um, I take someone else's story, and I put my spin on it, and that's kind of what it is, in a nutshell, if you will. Um, it took a long time, the process of removing radio and all that kind of stuff. But when I was working with Dave, I learned that narration is actually the foundation for promo and trailer. Promo and trailer are just like headlines for
Hmm.
narration, but they have the same purpose. They just hold your hand through that 30 seconds. You know?
Yeah.
But in narration, you're doing an hour. So everything's stretched out, but the arc of the story is still the same. The twists are still the same. The tension being made is still the same without having to go in a world, you know? Um, but all the foundations are still there. Um, if you have a grounded voice and you're living in yourself and your own point of view, but you take on the point of view that was written. um, you know, I teach this in the coaching and stuff. There's 3 points of view that you look at, when you're doing documentary narration. There is, a stenographer, which is somebody who basically repeats history and tells you the history and just the facts. So that's your Peter Coyote on a Ken Burns documentary.
Yeah, man.
Okay. He does it in his way. And Peter is Peter. Um, but he just rehashes the history without judgment,
Mhm.
which is so important. Um, then you have a guide, which is more along the lines of like David Attenborough, where the guide is somebody who's taking you into a world that they find fascinating. They are experts in this world, but they want to share it with you.
Yeah.
And you love this world. That's why you're watching. So I get to talk about something I am an expert in with somebody who's fascinated just as much as I am.
Mm.
And we get to share this adventure together. That is a guide. So those are mainly, like the nature documentaries and stuff like that. Um, those are fewer and far between for the workaday guys like us, because there's a lot of celebrities get that action first, but they do happen. Um, and that's the trick, is to find your fascination and your wonder in your voice about the subject matter. And that's where the acting comes in. You have to develop a character that is fascinated with this world, and you present it. Uh, the third is the character, and that's basically somebody who's actually in the show. They're a character in the show. Anthony Mendez and Jane the Virgin
Yes.
is a great example of that. Ron Howard and Arrested Development. They're few and far between, those kind of reads, but the character is an important one to know because it helps give you access to the guide
Mhm.
when you have to become an expert in something that you're not. And so those are the 3 points of view. So when a script comes in, I find out what point of view we're looking at. And so then I go into that frame of mind. Um, I develop a character for that particular style of show. Um, and then I do the narration for that. It's rare that I actually do something, I don't know, from my own point of view. I have to look at it from somebody else's. And the wonderful thing too about documentaries is that you learn a lot, and I love learning. I love watching documentaries,
Yeah.
and especially with a great narrator. If I have to rewind to hear the narrator, that's a great narrator.
Yeah.
If all I'm hearing is the story and I'm into the show and I forget that, I wanted to study the narrator, then I have to rewind. That's a great narrator. If you're that involved in the story and you forget that, somebody's telling you a story.
Peter
So,
Thomas, rest in peace.
mm,
That guy could tell a
yep,
story like
yep,
nobody's business. Um, I will say that, um, when I am studying narration, when I get a narration audition, um, I go look at 3 people: Keith David, Tom Pinto,
amazing. Yeah.
and the guy that's on the right of this screen here.
Oh,
Because
this isn't the Brady Bunch.
it is not, sir. It is not. He's over there. Um, because each of you, and Peter Thomas as well, but for the type of work that I mainly get, you 3, at least for me, kind of embody that.
Oh,
Um, where Peter has this, his voice is, it's not high, it's not deep either, but it just has this steadiness.
yeah,
Um, and Tom has elements of that too. I've heard things that you've done where you can get gravelly voiced, and
yeah,
I'm like, "Ooh, okay." And Keith David, he does the same thing. His is a little bit more here, and he explains it, and and you let the picture do the speaking, and I'm just an accented piece on the story. He
Mhm.
has that thing about him, and you're kind of a combination of both of them because I've heard things you've done where, like I said, you don't have to necessarily get gravelly, but then there's a pace that you have. um it gives me a sense of um familiarity with the subject. So being a subject matter expert, even though you may not be, but you read it from a standpoint is almost like, hey, I know about this. So if anyone should be telling the story, it should be me. And I think part of um what makes a good storyteller, a good narrator is voice aside, if you're listening to this thing and watching it, and I'm guilty of this. I have watched enough narrations or documentaries that if I drift off to sleep, I'm still hearing the narrator. I'm not even worried about what's on the screen because he's still telling me the story. But it's just like, tell me a story, and it's like, I'll tell you a story. And all of a sudden, you're just drifting off like, that's a good story. Oh, I'm supposed to be watching this. You know, you forgot about what's on screen. You're just listening to this person take you to a place,
Yeah,
and not everyone can do that. So
yeah,
yeah, I have no shame in my game when I say that you are at least for the generation of now, um you are one of the ones, as we say, you one of them ones that, I definitely like to go and just listen to, and sometimes curse under my breath like, "I auditioned for that." But no, man, you are one of you are definitely one of the people that I try to take as much as I can from, um, because I too love to tell a good story. When you have really great copy as well, and you're like, "Oh, this is something I can really sink my teeth
yeah.
in," and, you know, they're like, "Alright, we're ready whenever you are." It's like, "Alright, let's go get it," and you just go. It's a beautiful thing. I think it's one of the, um, probably ignored, and that might be too strong because a lot of folks, when they get into VO that I've talked to in my travels, it's usually the big 3. They wanna do promo, animation, or games. And I'm like, "Well, I like to do narration." "Yeah, I don't know, narration just seems so." I'm like, "Seems so what?" I get defensive because it's like, y'all
Yeah,
missing out, man. It's I don't know. Narrators get ignored, and we need to get more love. So love your narrators out there. Y'all like watching
yeah,
documentaries, and especially true crime now is so big.
yeah,
How do you
very.
not love us more? Just saying.
Well, see, that's the thing, and we'll go deep here real quick,
Yeah,
okay? It's a humble art. We are designed to not draw attention to ourselves.
right.
So we don't get the Comic-Cons or anything like that, even though I've been on just as many TV shows as a lot of these people who go to those conventions. But my job is to be invisible.
Mm,
My job is to hold your hand on an adventure, you know? There's 2 art forms in voiceover. You have voice acting with animation and games,
mhm.
and you have narrators who do documentary, in-show, or audiobook. And audiobook's a wonderful little world because you kinda get to combine both,
Yeah.
creating characters if you're into that. Um, it's the place that I love the most because, um, there isn't some sort of agenda that's going on in the background, where you're promoting something,
Yeah.
There's a level of endorsement with those kind of things, and with this, there isn't. It's simply about information and entertainment, and it's the 2 things that I love most. I like being entertaining, but I also like at least feel smarter, that I'm learning something,
Yeah.
um, that's how my mind works. And so that's where I found, a couple of my interests just collide
Mhm.
into this one place. Um, and so that's why I love it. It's an art form. And not enough people actually, I don't know if they recognize that or not, or are hearing this for the first time and the light bulb's going off. Um, uh, but the other ones, that's how you pay your rent, you know. But this is how you enjoy life. And
Yeah.
I enjoy life narrating. I really honestly swear on my life do. Um, so there you go.
I mean, it is what it is, man. Yeah, I would, and like I said, for as much as I love doing promo, if someone just said, "All right, we got a 12-part mini series on Lego. Do you want to do?" Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
let's go.
Let's go.
Um, that's I don't know. It's just and I've done games and I've done bit parts and animation and promo, but it's I don't know. That's just that one place. It hits me here. So in closing, we're gonna switch gears a bit, uh, because when there's not work, we do like to have fun. Uh, some of us take fun in a different direction. Um,
Where is this going?
Stay tuned, my
We have a
friend.
new sponsor.
Right. Brought to you by Near Beer. So I'm gonna go back a ways that I told y'all that Dan uh got on me about something. We were at Promax
Yes.
and 'twas you, Jack Daniel, and I, and if I'm not mistaken, a one Chad Erickson.
Okay.
And we were at the bar and I ordered a beer
Yeah.
and they were all watching me and I'm like, why are y'all watching me? It's like, oh, he didn't tell you? I'm like, what? And then I proceeded to get an education on the art of pouring a beer by one Daniel Nachtrab. So
If I
now
remember correctly, it was a Blue Moon,
that is correct, sir.
which is an unfiltered Belgian white style, so there's a lot of sediment in there, and to do that, you pour about a third into your glass, and then you swirl the beer to get all the sediment mixed back up again, and then you pour another third, and then you stir it again, and then you pour the last bit in. And if you were to, and you do this with Hefeweizens as well too. And if you were to really get, into the nitty gritty about it, you take the bottle before it's completely empty and you roll it with a towel to settle the final foam, and then you pour the rest of it in. But it's a very patient process. And then with the IPAs as well too, especially with IPAs, you do an agitated pour. You don't want to just lightly pour it into the thing where you don't get any head on the top of it. No, 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 no. You want to do it get it about 4 inches up off that glass and make sure it pours in. You want a really big head on that thing. And then watch that head settle back down, then pour some more in, and then watch the head settle back down, because you're reinvigorating the ingredients, and you're bringing out the essence of the beer, the smells, and it becomes the closest to tap that you can get with a bottled beer or can. And it smooths it out. So with IPAs, do a taste test. Pour half of it in, just like I told you to. Let it settle. Take a sip out of the beer bottle, or take a sip out of and then take a sip out of the glass. And you will see that the glass is much smoother and all that bitterness has kind of gone away from the IPA. And it's just a much more enjoyable way to drink a beer.
And by the time he explained that, my beer was hot and flat. It lacked all flavor. And I'm just like, all right, thanks, I guess. How did you get into being such a beer snob? Or
Uh,
aficionado will be
we
nice.
We discovered a little bar in downtown Dayton. On
Mhm.
Thursday nights, we would go down there called Boston's that had 180 different craft beers or
Wow.
international beer at the time.
Mhm.
Craft beer movement really hadn't kicked off yet. So I was doing Hefeweizens, which is where I learned this technique, at that place, and they took their time. They had proper glasses, the whole bit, and a great jukebox at the time. This is pre-internet, and we would spend our nights there, and they would educate. And then it ends up that, my brother and I got into it. Now, my brother and I really didn't get along great growing up, but when he moved away to college, we started to grow closer.
Hmm.
And then when we discovered a fascination for this thing called craft beer, the relationship just we had a solid foundation at that point.
Oh, that's cool.
And so the 2 of us kind of grew with that. We went through a home brewing stage and we would share our latest and greatest finds. "Oh, you gotta try this one. This one's really good." Um, and then we would study beer news. Why? I don't know. It was just we found the subject interesting. Um, and then, he did a little deal, commercial, real estate deal, which is what he does, in Cincinnati for a new brewery coming up there called Rheingeist, and they found out he was a beer guy, and they go, "Do you want in?" And he
Wow.
goes, "Can I call my brother too?" And they said, "Yeah," and so we kinda became shareholders. We're minority shareholders, but we got in and now, our brewers, even though we have no say in what goes on really in the day
Yeah.
to day, um yeah, so it's been a part of my life. Beer, by the way, should be drank like coffee. It's for conversation and nothing more, and, conversation and great ideas. I try to treat it that way. I try to keep it to a 2 to 3 minimum. I know I've gone over that a few times in my life.
You don't say.
But for the most part, when it comes to craft beer, they're pretty big beers, and they can
Mhm.
get you moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
So you wanna be patient with that and just have a nice drink with it and call it a night and enjoy it for the flavors that it brings you and the memories. So
See, I just thought you were, like, picking on me, but you actually have a keen insight on this whole thing. So I stand corrected, sir. Um, so with that being said, as we end the show, as I ask all my guests who take time out with me on my podcast, uh, how does Dan Nachtrab take time out for himself?
I try to spend as much time with my family, um, just hanging out with them. They're very funny, very smart people, and they're good people to hang out with. Um, they make me laugh. Um, I play lots of Call of Duty
Oh, I
with
know.
with with one Mr. Jack Daniel. That happens a
They've been
lot.
trying to get me on. I promise before the year is out, I will get on with you all.
We we play DMZ a lot on Call of Duty, and, so if you ever see me narrator, NARE 8R, there you are. So, um, but yeah, we have a good time, and, so go out with friends a lot, see concerts as much as I can. I love live music. I was a drummer growing up and, still dabble in it, but my life went a different direction, and, yeah, so that's it.
Cool. All right. Tell the folks how they can, if they want to follow the chronicles of being you. Where can they reach you on the socials and website and all that good stuff?
I think most of my socials are Dan Nachtrab VO, at Facebook and Instagram, but you can just go to my website. It's all there, dannachtrab.com. So coaching is available for documentary and narration. Um, and yeah, it's a fun life, man.
Uh, it really is. It really is. Well, sir, I have held you captive now. And you are, as we know in the business, the word that we don't like to hear, you are released.
No. You could have left it in silence.
Oh, that would have been perfect. You're like, all right, show's over, and Just bloop, like, where'd he go? That's how we do it, in silence. But no, thanks so much, man, for hopping on and spending some time with us. I truly do appreciate it. Um, you're one of my good buddies in this business, and I appreciate
I've loved watching your career just boom. It's awesome.
it. You guys do this all the time. I am the interviewer and host. You can't do that. But thank
Yes, I can.
you. But I appreciate it. It's been a long now. So I'm getting well. I am getting old. I'll be 50
Mm.
this year. Uh, it's been a journey, and the getting is good it's been good. And
You
here's
never know when it's gonna hit,
yeah,
you know?
you really
Is
don't.
it Debbie Harada's at
Ah,
the height of her career right now? Come on.
yeah, and
Goals, baby, goals.
that's the one. There's a short list of people. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to get to where you are. But yeah, she's incredible. She was my second guest. Um, and we had a good time. Now that you're missing, I'm probably gonna give her a call today. Uh the newly minted grandmother. So yeah, Debbie, if you're watching, we love you and hey. Well,
Hey.
all right, ladies and gentlemen, and all if you kids are watching, um, I think that is it for us. And we thank you for watching the podcast. And hey, take some time out for yourself. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to the Take Time Out with Tre Mosley podcast, part of the Titan Media Network. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. To see the video version of this, you can find us on YouTube on the Take Time Out with Tre Mosley YouTube page. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching. Either way, we'll see you next time.